Which ASICS daily trainer is the right one for you? Let's break it down. Today, we're comparing the ASICS Gel Cumulus 27 and the ASICS Novablast. What's up, everybody? I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Like I said, today we're comparing two of ASICS's daily training models, the very popular and somewhat new Novablast 5, as well as the classic Gel Cumulus 27. Now, if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below in the description. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of this comparison, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, as I put a lot of time and effort in these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, starting us off with some quick disclaimers and disclosures, I did receive both these shoes for the purpose of review from ASICS in some capacity. The Novablast 5 I received through my local sales rep for ASICS through an association with my local running store who I've done content for in the past. With the Gel Cumulus 27, I received this directly from ASICS, same thing for the purpose of review. Both I received free of charge, but in either situation, no one gives me talking tracks, talking points, no one watches my content beforehand. I'm not required to include these in any specific videos, anything along those lines. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of these two shoes. Now, really at their base, these two shoes have the same intended use, which is kind of that standard daily training. The Novablast 5 took the Daily Trainer of the Year for me in 2024, just because it was a really versatile, kind of not quite lightweight daily trainer option, but very versatile option where you really could go a variety of paces in the shoe. Then it's kind of the new age standard daily trainer where you're going to get a little bit more responsive of a foam underfoot, though not necessarily a racing foam. The Cumulus 27, however, is going to be kind of your classical daily trainer where you're not going to get a lot of bells and whistles. You're just going to get a supportive foam underfoot that is built to handle a little bit of everything, but not necessarily excel in any given area. So that's how we're going to look at these shoes to start, but let's dive into the specifics and see how they compare. From a price standpoint, the Cumulus 27 comes in at $140, which is pretty standard for a daily trainer. Meanwhile, the Novablast 5 comes in at $150, which is still very reasonable. But you can see that with the newer technologies and a little bit of flashiness, that's where you're going to have that $10 discrepancy there for the most part. Now, from a specs perspective, the shoes are fairly similar. So the Cumulus comes in at 9.2 ounces, which is 261 grams, and the Novablast 5 comes in at 9 ounces and 255 grams. So there's a 0.2 ounce difference. So for the most part, like, they feel pretty similar in weight. And those are pretty competitive for standard daily trainers, but again, not technically lightweight daily trainers based off that weight alone. From a stack standpoint, they continue to be very similar, with the Cumulus coming in at 41 in the heel, 33 in the forefoot for an 8mm heel to toe drop. And then you have 41.5 in the heel, 33.5 in the forefoot, and an 8mm heel to toe drop for the Novablast 5. So 0.5 difference, but basically a same drop overall in the shoes. So both from a weight perspective and from a drop perspective, very similar. Now, moving to the fit, I'll say that that similarity continues. So I think the Novablast is going to be a little bit wider in the heel. You get a little bit more standard fitting heel in the Cumulus. Then in the midfoot, I would say they're fairly similar. I would say they are standard to wide, probably actually just wide for the most part. And then the toe box, I think the Cumulus has maybe a little bit more room in the toe box. For the most part, though, I would say both of them are wide fitting. So not just wide foot friendly, but full-on wide fitting, to the point where if someone has narrow feet, they may want to consider half sizing down in either of these just to get better lockdown. But from a length perspective, I do find that they fit true to size lengthwise. So for the most part, I'm a 10.5 in both of these shoes, and that is my standard size across all brands and all shoes. So with the fit, the stack, the weight, all of that being fairly consistent, and there only being a $10 price difference, what about the rest of the shoe? What about the materials? Talking about the uppers, the Cumulus has an engineered mesh with a fully gusseted tongue. I would say that it is comfortable. You have some light to mid cushion there in the heel. You have a lightly cushioned kind of synthetic material tongue. And then you just have kind of a standard overall lacing system. Meanwhile, over on the Novablast 5, you have an engineered jacquard mesh for the upper, and then you have a little bit more cushion there in the heel. I would say it's a little bit softer, a little bit plushier, but the tongue itself is going to be pretty much the same idea, the same general material. And the tongue itself, I'd have to remind myself, it is gusseted. I would say it's like a partial gusset though, for the most part, but same thing, like you have a pretty standard lacing system. The Jacquard is supposed to be a little bit more breathable, and I think compared to these two, that is true. So the Novablast 5 is going to be a little bit more breathable there in the midfoot and the toe box compared to the Cumulus 27, but the heel has a little bit more plush, and that material that they use, it's similar overall. And so I do think, yes, it's going to be slightly more breathable than the Cumulus, but not that much more overall. Both of them run a little bit warm, but not so crazy like some of the past models of the Novablast have been very, very hot. So for the most part, warmer for a daily trainer, but not super, super crazy. I think both of them you can get good lockdown in. I've had some people say that they can't get good lockdown in the Novablast, and I think that they're probably narrow-footed is the only conclusion that I can come to, because I have a standard fitting foot. Like, I have issues with super wide fitting shoes. Like, I can do okay in wide fitting shoes, but I definitely don't fit in wide sizes. And so I would say, like, yeah, if you're narrow-footed, you're going to have issues with lockdown, but even without the use of a runner's knot on either of the shoes, honestly, I've been totally fine from that lockdown perspective. Now, full transparency with the Cumulus, I haven't picked up the pace quite as much, just some strides, and so maybe for some extended efforts, you're going to feel it a little bit more, but with the Novablast, I didn't really feel that that was the case. I did take it to kind of tempo and threshold paces, test it out, long runs, and it performed really, really well from a lockdown perspective. Now, I think the biggest difference between these two shoes is going to come down to the midsole foam. So you have FF Blast Plus in the Cumulus 27, and then a pure gel disc in the back. So that's going to be a EVA OBC blend. And then you have FF Blast Max, which my understanding is a super critical EVA in Novablast 5. So really you're just getting a softer, more responsive foam in the Novablast 5. Some people have called it squishy. I don't find it squishy. I do find it soft, but I find it to be generally responsive. Meanwhile, the FF Blast Plus is soft, yet more supportive. So it's not going to compress quite as much. It's going to hold its shape a little bit more as you run. The Novablast 5 will compress more, but it's going to give you more return. So with the pace versatility between the two shoes, the Cumulus, I would say, is going to go great on easy runs for the most part, steady runs, like maybe some strides at the end you're not going to really want to pick up. With the Novablast 5, I do think that the foam actually encourages you to run a little bit faster. And so I think, you know, going to threshold efforts, tempo efforts, things like that. Not necessarily like huge, long, extended efforts or super fast intervals, but maybe some of those mid-distance intervals or kind of more steady or progression style runs are going to feel best in the Novablast 5 when comparing these two shoes. Now, I do find that the stability is a little bit better in the Cumulus because you have a little bit more support, a little bit more structure there, but I wouldn't say that the Novablast is an inherently unstable shoe either. I felt like it did a good job, and then you do have a fairly wide base that's going to help you out there as well. Moving to the outsoles, these are very different. So you have the Fluid Ride rubberized EVA compound as the outsole for the Cumulus 27. So that's not going to be an actual rubber. It is an EVA injected with rubber to make it a little bit more durable and give it a little bit more grip. So that is not going to be the grippiest grip or outsole, and it's definitely not going to be the most durable of outsoles. So I do think it makes the shoe a little bit fun, and it's soft. It is going to give a little bit more responsiveness than if it had a traditional outsole. But over on the Novablast 5, you have that Harlow rubber, which is that ASICS rubber that they use. For me, it did fine, but I've heard a lot of complaints about this being very, very slick, even on just generally wet roads. That was not my experience, but I did want to say that just because, again, I've gotten a lot of comments saying that they think I'm crazy that I didn't have slippage in the shoe. It's the experience that I had. I can't change that, but I will preface that for this video because it seems to be a recurring issue for some people. Was not for me, but obviously between the two shoes, the Novablast 5 is going to have better durability and better overall grip, but it's certainly not something to write home about. So neither of these are going to blow you away with the grip. But if you do live in an area that has a little bit more rain, things along those lines, you probably do want to go with the Novablast if you're looking just at the outsoles, unless you're going to be inside and running on the treadmill more, in which case, you know, probably fine with either one. Now, as far as my pick, I probably go the Novablast between these two because it is going to be a little bit more versatile overall. And the Novablast did win my Daily Trainer of the Year, standard Daily Trainer at least, of the year in 2024. And frankly, when the 5 comes out at the end of the year, or the 6, I should say, at the end of the year, it will probably be up there as far as standard Daily Trainers go. But I think people are going to sleep on the Cumulus 27. If you watch my full review of it, you'll understand that I actually did very much enjoy this shoe. It's just the Novablast 5 is such a it's just such a versatile and really overall fun and comfortable experience, and you're not getting any of the bells and whistles here. But if I wanted just a no-nonsense shoe, Cumulus 27 is great. It really is. But yeah, between the two, I think it's kind of no contest, honestly. Especially for just $10 more, I do feel like you're getting a lot more out of the shoe. Now, I have recently seen some durability concerns from people tearing through the engineered jacquard mesh after less than 100 miles, and you would hope that a shoe like this is going to last you a couple hundred at least. And so that is something to maybe consider. I haven't seen any concerns about the just standard engineered mesh from the Cumulus, but it also hasn't been out for quite as long, so we may see some of those complaints later. But for me, I am going Novablast 5 over the Cumulus 27. I think it's closer than you would expect, but I do think, it's a pretty easy decision for me for the most part. So just some final thoughts. ASICS consistently knocking it out of the park over the last few years with their running models. Excited to see what they do with the Novablast 6. Excited to see what they do with the Meta Speed series. If you're on the internet and you like running shoes, you've seen a million samples that I don't know if I can or can't talk about, right, that are going to be releasing later this year. So I'm really excited. Last year, ASICS popped up in a lot of my top shoes of the year lists. I'm actually going to be doing a top shoes of 2025 for Q1 coming up, and I'll have to look if any ASICS models are making their way into that list. Actually, I guess this year so far I've only reviewed the Gel Cumulus and the Gel Nimbus, and so I expect to see ASICS in my Q3 and Q4 updates for sure, but they may not appear in my Q1 update. I haven't sat down and decided what my top shoes are so far. So if you're watching this video, honestly, that video is probably dropping later this week, as I always film a week ahead. So anyways, if you watched this far, I sure appreciate you. Please take a second, leave a comment, let me know what other comparisons you guys would like to see and what I could be doing better in my videos to make them more entertaining, educational, just better overall for each and every one of you. I do my best with the limited time that I have to just get content out. So long term, I do hope to improve my production quality, but I'm just trying to get done what I can in the time I have right now. So stay tuned for the future. I'm sure I'll get better at this. I'm sure I'll get better at editing, and I hope that these videos will continue to evolve. So, but really, I do appreciate if you stuck around this far, and I appreciate everyone who stops by, watches any of my content. It means a lot that people would take time out of their day to watch these. So if you haven't already, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, consider turning on notification as well. And as always, I'll leave you with a question to close it out, which is, what brand do you think makes the best daily trainers? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.